Greetings. Before this next update starts, I'd just like to make it clear that I recorded it as part of my daily exercise when I went out for a walk this morning. I hope it's informative. Please feel free to make any comments. Be safe. Peace. Okay, greetings and welcome to the second Covid-19 community update. It's the 12th of April 2020, 7 a.m. in the morning, and we're still on lockdown. My wife woke up this morning. She said, every day we wake up, we keep hearing about new people who have passed away. And that is the tragic reality of the situation that we're facing. Yesterday, I think it was 917 people passed away. It's almost 1,000 people a day. The death toll in the UK is reported at 9,875 people. That's 1,000 people a day. One thing is clear is that by the end of all this, everyone will know someone who's passed away. Now, I say 1,000 people a day, but of course the figures are much higher than that. We know they're much higher than that because those are the government figures, and they don't include people who have passed away in care homes, people who have passed away at their home in beds, people who were turned away from the NHS because the initial symptoms didn't seem so serious, and then they escalated over the space of 24 hours. There are so many people, there's just too many people to kind of like pay respects to, from Dougie to Dame Barrow to, there's just too many people. And I'm hoping that when this is all done, that there is a proper ritual in remembrance of all these people who have lost their lives. Greetings. Okay, so one of the things that we have to acknowledge right now is that there's both a pandemic and an infodemic, and both combined are causing incredible amounts of stress, of fear, and in some cases panic. And it's really not good enough to be doing I told you itis, because the virus is real. Now, of course, it's not caused by 5G, and I'm really not going to go into those ideas and those theories. But we do need to acknowledge that people have a right to make sense of this world and what's happening around them in any way they see fit. And I suppose unless they're trying to force and impose their ideas upon others, just let them be. Let everyone be. We are all entitled to our own thoughts. We're all entitled to our own philosophies. Now, I remember there were rumours going around saying that African people are immune from Covid-19. Trust me, African people are not immune from Covid-19. And those who are reporting those deaths are not part of some master conspiracy to hide the truth. And you only need to ask those African, Asian and minority ethnic health professionals who've lost their lives protecting us and doing their work to keep us safe to kind of put paid to those ideas. Now, the only practical way out of this for all of us in the UK is if the government increases its testing programme, because right now it's pretty pathetic. Now, there's been a confirmed 79,000 people infected, but the reality of the situation is that the figures are likely to be at least triple that. We just don't know. You see, in the early days of this pandemic, when the government was implementing its herd immunity strategy, it was deliberately allowing people to get infected. And that's what's caused us to have one of the highest mortality rates. We're actually higher than Italy. But the blame game is not something we should play right now. You know, that can be dealt with afterwards. Right now, we know that countries like Germany are testing around 100,000 people a day. Whereas in the UK, I think we're supposed to be getting to the target by the end of the month. But what we should be aware of is that there's two kinds of tests. There's a test that sees if you have the antibodies, if you've already contracted the virus and recovered from it. Where if you're thinking about putting the economy before lives, you test someone, they're clear, and you say, get back to work. And then there's the other test, the one that says, have you got the virus now? Now, any proper testing program, testing regime, is going to require use of both tests. Not one over the other, both. So it means having an organised plan to make sure, first of all, of course, the healthcare professionals, those on the front lines, those on the buses, on the transport hubs, the trains, those in the shops. This country couldn't run without them. That's another discussion for another day. You see, as much as I like to talk politics, this is not the time. See, right now, many of us are facing draconian policing, and this is where bored police officers are overreaching with their police powers and actually threatening to pepper spray people or fining people. I'm not saying that physical distancing mustn't be enforced. It's important for the good of everyone. But we've got to be mindful of these mission creep laws. Now, what is also happening, and isn't a conspiracy theory, is the fact that social media companies are starting to censor content. Now, of course they're going to argue that Of course they're going to argue that what they're doing is ensuring that the spread of misinformation, that infodemic I was speaking about, is not harming people, it's not causing more panic. But again, it's a very dangerous, slippery slope. And on top of that, what is undoubtedly true is that the companies Google and Apple are actually now investing and designing tracking programs into their phones. Now, I think we saw this in China, and when it happened in China, the news agencies here were saying, oh, China's authoritarian policies, using their phones to spy on their civilians. But now we know, and it's not a conspiracy, that Google and Apple are working on doing the same thing. And the potential for abuse is huge. Once those systems or those programs are inside the operating systems, getting rid of them will be nigh impossible. Now, there are two words that are not being covered as much on the news that should be, and it's one of the reasons that inspired me to actually make this update, and that is rent and food. You see, what we're now learning is that every single day, at least 1.5 million people are going without food for a whole day. And I actually believe this increases a real risk if this lockdown goes on for months, of food theft and food riots. You see, food banks, charities, volunteers, they can't all do it alone. This is a real issue, and this is what government's supposed to step in to do. Now, if you are living with an underlying health condition, for example, sickle cell or diabetes, then the government is, which is a good thing, stepping in and delivering weekly food packages. And I commend it for these kind of acts. And also there are food vouchers for children who are on free school meals. But this doesn't address the underlying issue, that there are over 1 million people in this country who have no savings, no money. Now, I'm not an economist, so I'm not going to try and outline the whole stimulus package that the Treasury outlined a couple of weeks ago. Basically, if I remember correctly, anyone who's got savings of over £16,000, you can't get help with rent, but what you can do is get like £75 a week. And anyone who's under £16,000 is slightly different. You can get, I think, up to 80% of housing benefit, and it's around £94 a week, and that increases if you have children. And these are, I think they call it basic income. This is the closest you can get to universal basic income. It doesn't mean that there are not millions of people who are getting nothing, who for whatever reasons can't claim, are not eligible, don't have the resources, don't have internet access, can't pay for broadband, are actually totally isolated. And if they can't eat, because the government's not supplying food to everyone who needs it. If they can't go shopping because their savings are gone, then once the charities, the volunteers, all the self-help groups that are doing some amazing work runs out of stock, then all of a sudden we're in a situation where people have to do whatever they have to do to survive. Anyway, I want to close right now with a plea for those of you with access to broadband, laptops or computers with webcams, to keep in touch with those who are vulnerable in our community, those who are at risk of scams, financial scams, domestic abuse, health issues that aren't being treated with the same severity because of this pandemic. I mean, there's lockdown all over the world. We have family abroad in the Caribbean, on the motherland, in Asia, South America. Please, just check in on them. Let everyone know that they're not alone. Let the elders know that they can contact you if they receive an email or a phone call that's trying to scam them out of their savings, because even during these times, there are people still up to some badness. I also ask that you spare a thought for the 500,000 residents who are living in flammable cladding and are being charged thousands of pounds a month so that they can sleep safe when they've got no income coming in. Grenfell isn't over. I also want to suggest that, as well as looking out for others, that we practice self-care. You see, so many of us are consuming news media and social media, actually, for what it's worth, 24/7. And that ain't healthy. I understand it, of course, we're on lockdown, but it's not good for our mental well-being. And so we do need to practice some physical distancing from our computers, from our television sets. We kind of need to have a little bit of balance, because that drip of negativity, of hysteria every single day is kind of hyping up the fear, lowering our resistance, our belief in ourselves and our capability to actually deal with this, to address this. And we will. Now, every Thursday I think they do this applaud for the NHS, and I know there are some people who are wiry applauding for the NHS, and I say we, I include myself in that we, because I also come out. I'm not just applauding for the NHS, I'm applauding for those who are on the front line, who I see when I come out for my daily exercise, whether I'm cycling or walking, who are emptying the bins, who are sweeping the roads, who are manning the shops, or peopling the shop I should say. They're there. It goes beyond the NHS, and these are the people that deserve that applause. And if that applause actually helps them to go out and continue what they're doing while their colleagues are dropping because they don't have enough personal protection equipment and the government is playing politics with the issue, I'm going to applaud them. So understand, giving them support doesn't mean that we forget austerity. It doesn't mean that we forget the acts of those who have led to the increase of unnecessary deaths. Now, if any of you have any questions, of course, please feel free to write down below, and I'll try and respond as best I can, or others may contribute. I'm even willing to host a weekly radio programme with phone-ins and what's nots if there's demand. Information, communication, dialogue is key to surviving this. Anyway, I think that's my half hour done. So I'm going to turn back and walk home. And what I'm going to say, as ever, is please be safe, be optimistic, be angry. When we come through this, there's a lot of work that needs to be done. But most of all, be loving and survive. May the ancestors continue to guide and protect us. Ashe.